Hello, storytellers. Welcome back to this series about how to write a fiction series. And today's topic is how to create your series Bible for your fiction series. A few questions you might be wondering. What exactly is a series Bible? What is it that you're keeping track of? And what would be some tips on how to create your series Bible? So let's get into it. So number one, what is a series Bible? Now this is a way to keep track of your information, of your characters, of your setting, of your world, for your, not just the first book, but your whole series in your fiction series. So, because if you're writing a fiction series, you need some sort of way to keep track of what you're writing. And I've learned this the hard way. So I really think this is going to be beneficial to you. There's a way to do this to help you keep track and to organize so you don't forget all the details. If you are writing a longer and more complex series with more characters, it's important to have a way to keep track, and a series Bible will help you do that. So as you write, as you might have noticed when you write your novels, some things will change and shift. You need a way to keep track of what, maybe the name changed, or maybe the villain changed, and you need a way to keep track of all of this. Even after you have written book one, if you wait a while to write book two, say you wait half a year, if you haven't written things down, you might not remember what all the details that happened in book one, which is a good reason to write down everything that all the characters and the setting and the world for book one, so that when you come back to write book two, that it will be right in front of you, and it'll be easy to do that. It's important that your story world, that things stay consistent, like your character's hair color, their name. I just did this. I in the recent women's fiction, I started with one name. I think I named her Sally. By the middle of the book, I was calling her Sarah, and I stayed with that till the end of the book. And so good thing my proofreader caught that, or, I would have been having two different names for the same person. So this is what happens. And so now I have a notebook where I keep track of things. That's my mode usually, is I will go use a notebook to try to keep track of things. So number two, how do you go about creating a series Bible? Some tips. If you are going to use paper, have tabs. Like you can do that in a binder or just a regular notebook. You can get them on Amazon or wherever, or your local craft store. But like some tabs that where you can write, this is characters, and the next one could be, this is the setting, book one, right? Or this is the technology for book one, or whatever you're writing. Just a way to keep track so that you can quickly turn to it and look at it and say, oh yeah, this is what I decided. This is what I had written in book one, or even if you're just starting book one, but that you have a way to keep track and to write down what you have decided for each step of the way. So another tip is to make sure it's easy to access. So that could be online. Google Docs or Google Sheets would work too. You could organize it in Google Sheets, or Evernote. Some writers use Evernote, and that seems to work. If you have Scrivener, that's also another way to keep track. Scrivener software is a way to keep track. Again, I start in Scrivener, I end up in my notebook. So I don't know. I'm sure there's a better way than I use. There's something that just really clicks with me when I write something by hand. I'm not sure what that is. It's like the creativity wheels start turning more. And so I don't know, maybe that's just how I'm made, but there's many different ways you can keep track. So decide what system you're going to use, and then use that. When you create your series Bible, have a page that's dedicated to each character in your story, and really try to get some of these details, like their appearance, so eye color, hair color, important things like that. the relationships, their backstory, that's important. And for backstory, I just really want to encourage you, if you haven't gotten the Wound Thesaurus by Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi, it's given me really a great, like, about the characters' wounds and what might be affecting them in how they interact with other characters. That's been a game changer for me, really. So I want to encourage you, because backstory really is, because that's diving into your main character's fears and their misbeliefs, what they, the lies they tell themselves. But this also ties into your theme. So backstory is actually critical because it's the thing that ties into theme, which ends up, it goes throughout your story. It's the thread, really, the golden thread that ties everything together throughout your story. For example, in my, I'm writing book 2 in the women's fiction right now, but I've just learned from digging into her backstory that my main character, who is a doctor, a pediatrician, that she had a twin sister that died when they were young. And so there are these fears, and this was also her passion to become a doctor, right? Because she died from, her twin died from being quite sick. And so the thing I noticed about this character as I've been, because often I'll just sketch out, or what do you call that? Pants, I guess, the first 3 chapters, because it's in my head and I just have to get it on paper. And then I'll go back and, okay, now I'm going to do a little bit of outlining. That's usually my mode. And that's when I hammer down the climax. That's how I do my books. But this is how I discovered her backstory. And I had an aha moment earlier this week. This is why she likes to be in control of so many things in her life, and she doesn't really let go. So I'm thinking the theme might be letting go, or something around that topic. I'm not exactly sure, but it just feels that way. So this is what I'm saying. When you dive into their backstory, I'm telling you that so many things are revealed about your main character. And it also helps to, like we talked, I think, in the last video about the villain, it also helps to understand your villain in an even greater way. Because, really your villain is kind of the opposite, right? The opposite on the bad end of your main character, of your hero. And so this will really help you to figure out both characters. I mean, it certainly has worked for me. I just encourage you to try that. Really dig deep into your backstory of your main character, but also your villain. You'll have all kinds of surprises, which will help you write that messy middle, which is that's where I often get stuck. But understanding what is the villain after, man, that's gonna really help you to just to get so many aha moments. This is what he's after, and this is how he's going to go about it. Okay, so then what's the main character about to do now, or whatever, where they're going to clash, kind of like how Hollywood does it. I like it when I see in some movies where the main character and the villain, it's like they're passing each other even in the hallway, and they don't even know that one's the villain. They don't know that the other person's the villain. It's just it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and we want our readers on the edge of their seat. So sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but I'm just excited about things I'm learning about writing better stories. Have a page dedicated to each character in your story. So backstory, but also relationships, family and family names, places in this world. And it would be helpful if you could have a way for beta readers to search your documents. Now, I realize that would mean that you would need to either have Google Drive, Google Sheets, or maybe Evernote, so you could pass it back and forth. Unless you wanted to use Dropbox and just upload a PDF or something, that would work too. But just a way that you can store information, that you can keep track of your series, of your fiction series. This is going to be super helpful for you. On to number 3. What do you want to track in your series Bible? So, you're going to want the facts in your world. Now, if you're writing contemporary romance, there aren't so many big details about setting, because really often the government's the same. So you're not, and there's not usually, unless you're writing paranormal, not usually a lot of magic or anything like that. And so the facts of your world are, and the setting is pretty easy to keep track of, but it's still good to write that down, just to have it written down so that you can go double check, because maybe you have Main Street, you describe Main Street and the different businesses, and maybe you wrote down the wrong color in what you're writing now, and then the color you wrote in the series Bible or something. So that will be helpful. And if you can keep track also of every recurring character in your book, so of course your main characters, but also the side characters, and their hair color, eye color, height, accents, and what's unique about their appearance. Like maybe you have an older lady, and maybe she wears thick glasses, or there are different ways to have a unique appearance. There's a man that walks with a limp and walks with a cane, right? Or different, something unique that is about their appearance. Also commonly used phrases, how they talk, and also something to consider is, what do some of the other characters say about this character? Like sometimes in my books, I don't know, I'm not sure how it comes out, just comes out that way, but I'll have other characters say something about, they're talking to each other, and they're going to say something about like the main character or or the main character's family. And you'll get a glimpse of how the community feels about this person. Or they could be talking about the villain, which is common also. So relationships that your characters have with other characters, that will be important to add to your series Bible. Also, what are their skills? What are they good at? Or maybe one of their problems that they have to deal with is, what are they lacking in their skills? Like my main character in this book, in book 2, is she struggles with relationships. And she's actually quite lonely, and so I'm discovering this. And so, how are we going to muddle through, right? What's going to be revealing, and what's going to be, how are they going to react? What are they going to say? But also, what are they good at? So, what are they not so good at? What are they good at? These are good things to write down. Include, like we mentioned, include their backstory, include their personality. Are they bubbly and outgoing? Are they quiet? Or maybe someone's really good at data and, they're very analytical. That's great. So, write all of that down too. And some other details to consider. I like to, in fact, this is sometimes the first thing I write down is I will brainstorm who this character is. I usually start with the main character. And their backstory is a big, that's how I usually start, is with the backstory, because then I'll start to know their fears and their wounds, and the wounds from childhood which carry over into adulthood. For me, this is what I do. What their wound is going to be, like, their biggest wound is what they're going to have to face in the climax, right? And this makes for a really impactful, I don't know, I like it, this impactful book. I feel like when I read fiction books, I want the main character to have to face her biggest fear when you get to the climax. And whatever that looks like, and so I'm brainstorming that right now in my book. But so whatever that is, they're going to have to face it. Why? Because the goal of a fiction story is transformation, right? The main character needs to transform, right? So their flaws, and they all do have them in the beginning, and their fears and the lies they tell themselves. This is the arc across the book, and by the time you get to the climax, they're going to need to face that fear, and hopefully, if it's a positive transformation you're after, that they will overcome or have some kind of way that they will start to work through it, right? It's not like they face the climax, face their fears, and suddenly they're perfect. No, that they are willing to work through it, to take the steps toward change. Readers are looking for that, right? They're looking for that transformation of your main character. And so, you can include this as you write out your book summary. I like to do that. I like to write out the summary of the book, the details about the main characters, and then after that, I'll get to the next one, which is setting. I'll start writing down, okay, so what are the recurring locations and settings that happen in this book? And it could be something as simple as, oh, okay, so they go to the ranch, and, it doesn't have to be, that they fly somewhere, although that's exciting too, right? But sometimes we think setting, oh, well, I only need that if I'm writing, say, fantasy or sci-fi, which is very involved type of setting, right? Because it's a different world, it's a different setting. So that'll be important if you are writing fantasy or sci-fi, that you are writing the details of your world. But if you're writing something contemporary, likely you'll have the same type of government. The thing that'll be changing is your make-believe setting, ranch or small town. You might call it a different name. And so this is going to be important to write down. But also, if it's the main setting is grandma's house, that you're writing the details of grandma's house, right? What makes it compelling? Is there things that, grandma left behind that are like objects of significance or that really mean a lot to the main character? These are things that readers love to discover as they read. And so keep track of setting. Next one that's important is culture and government. Now this is really going to be important as far as if you're writing a fantasy or a sci-fi. But in a contemporary romance, sometimes what I've noticed is the culture in the town is quite different than the culture in the city. I remember, which one was that now? I think book 5 of my Billionaire series, because the heroine came from Seattle, big city, and the culture there was different than the lakeside town, which is the main location of the whole series is this lakeside small town. And so the culture was very different, and she needed to adjust. So even if it's contemporary, they might still need to adjust to what that culture is. An example of like a sci-fi, this would be dystopian, but Divergent by Veronica Roth, how the world works, the ruling government, the culture of each district. There's these different, factions, and how each one is ruled, and the kind of the way they're governed. And so these are all important things to write down so that you can keep track, right, as you're writing your series. And this applies even if you're writing, maybe your series is only 3 books, but I still think it's important so that you're not losing any information. I think that's going to really help you. So track any ruling organizations or leaders or government, or if there's some kind of mystery, maybe there's a mystery organization or a mob, that's kind of an organization system, and maybe they have rules or laws in your world, and write down the culture of any faction or place and the attitude of the ruling government, if that's important to your story world. I was just thinking, like Star Wars, the different rules and laws that they had in the fictional world of Star Wars made it actually really very interesting, right, in how that was created. So you could do the same in yours. Another thing to keep track of would be a fantasy system or, some, emerging technology. What are the rules for your world, and who has access to this technology? How does it work, and what are the consequences of using it? I just remember that also in, was it Divergent? It's the very last one, maybe, in Allegiant. There was an object where they took the main character through, it was like this mind that she put the mind probes on, and she needed to go, she was questioned, and every time she would win or succeed through a level, the light would turn on, right? And so that's, these are like consequences of using it, because if she didn't make it through the series of questions, she would die, right? So there's consequences. And so these are interesting things to write down and note, because readers are going to be really interested, right, in how this works. How does your society work? Or like Star Wars, for example, what type of weapons are used? That would be like Star Wars using the lightsaber, right? And so it's important to really understand what are the different things in your story that are going to be important for readers to know, and for you to remember, so that you are very consistent throughout each book in the series. Another thing that might be important would be an object or jewelry or something like that might be important. I know in book 1 of this women's fiction, there was a painting that was really important to the main character. And, that was very significant to her. But there might be, different objects like books or journals or boxes or something that is considered important to the main character, or maybe to that someone really wants it and she's, keeping it safe or something like that. So these are important things to understand. So you write down why it's important, and write down also what significant role is this object going to play throughout the book, right? And if you can add a picture of whatever the object is, if it's a necklace, have a picture of a necklace that sort of looks like, find one that sort of looks like what you're thinking of. This might help inspire you, right, as you write. Another thing maybe to keep track of is a timeline. Now, I realize this is maybe more important if you're writing a thriller, but a timeline would be helpful to keep track of when things happen. If the book started in spring, but it's going to end in the fall, you can do this on the back of cardboard poster paper too, or or in your notebook, or you can do it online, but just a way that you're keeping track of where this is going, and even when the characters meet for the first time. If it's romance, that might be important, where and when the characters meet for the first time. Even the villain, how did they meet the hero or the heroine, and what is the backstory of how they first met. These might be important things to know. And then lastly, keep track of a glossary. Like, say if you're, this is an example, but if you are writing fantasy or sci-fi, and there's some different words that you're using, write down that word and how you spell it, and then the meaning of that word. It'll help you in later books, right? So that you understand what you wrote in book 1, and you can refer back to it, say if you're writing book 2 or 3, that you'll remember, oh, that's what I meant, So this is a series Bible is really helpful in that way, right? And but also a text guide, like, so that, say you had a small town, and did you use capitalization for that small town? Maybe there's other things you capitalized that you weren't sure, but you wanted them to be capitalized, or the way names of corporations are written, the way the town is spelled, those types of things. So you'll want to have a text guide too, which will be very helpful. And other than that, I encourage you to keep maybe, I guess it would be kind of like a template of the details of the character, like their, appearance, their height, the things they say, their wounds, like a template where you're keeping track of all these things. As something that might be helpful is you could try creating a color code for each book. This is something that I've found helpful. Now, sometimes I'll do it with, if I'm using sticky notes, like Post-it notes. So book 1 is green. I'll have a green Post-it note. Then I know, looking at that Post-it note, that's referring to book 1. Or if I have book 2 is blue, then that Post-it note's going to be, that's for book 2. And if book 3 is yellow, the yellow one is for book 3. So you can do it that way. Or write in a green pen for book one. And when you look at it in your notebook or on your, if you're writing things down on your poster board, you'll know, oh, this is green. This is book one. Book two, so book two is blue. Okay, so this is must be talking about details of book two. Do you know what I mean? So you'll know at a glance what information you are referring to specifically. Try to keep the key of your system of your series Bible, on the front page of, when you open up your binder, or if you keep track of it somehow online, or in your software. So be sure to create a key for your system, like your color coding for your books and that sort of thing, so that you can glance at it quickly and be reminded where everything is and what it refers to in your series Bible. And then one last thing maybe to remember is when you finish each book, update your series Bible. So you're finished writing book one, jot down any changes that you made, once the book is finished and you finally decided, oh, okay, this is what her name's going to be. This is what I'm finally decided what the small town is going to be called, or the rules of the world if you're writing fantasy or sci-fi, but that you write that down, what you've decided for book one, because it'll come in handy later when you're writing book three or book four in your series, that you'll be able to look back and to see what it is that you wrote down for book one. So I hope this is helpful. These are just some of the tips that I have for creating a series Bible so that you can, get all the information that's important for writing your book. And so I hope this was helpful for you. If you missed it last time, there's also, you can grab a free PDF, tips on writing down the details of what to include in your series, your fiction series. I hope that will be helpful to you also. I'll see you next time as we continue with how to write a fiction series. So meanwhile, happy writing and have a wonderful week. Talk to you next time.